Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, but you probably already knew that. I'm going to fix that door thing so it's not so shiny. Gracie's napping. It's kind of warm up here. That's why I'm in my shorts. It's one of those things of looking good from here down, but then the shorts and the rest of it, well, you get it. Hello, David. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here today. Hi, Marge. Thanks for being here, you guys. It's great to see you. So today we're focusing on relationships, and I think Alyssa Kuzik is here too. She's just not probably going to be chatting, but she's here too. So, um, hi, Alyssa. Thanks for being here. Um, we're going to be talking about who you are in relationship and cultivating awareness of who you are in relationship. Now, and many times um, I've thought so for the week I've been thinking about relationship, and we're in relationship to so many elements. We're in relationship to every element of our life. And so where do we start with this conversation? The little thumbnail has two people together. So we imagine that this conversation is about cultivating awareness of who we are in relationship to a partner, but it's also who are we in relation to our children or our bodies, or I've got this skin cancer here and I'm having a relationship with skin cancer. I've had a relationship with skin cancer for at least 40 years, if not 50 years. I've started working with it for over 40 years. So it's a relationship that I have with skin cancer. So we have a relationship with everything. I have a relationship with you. And when I cultivate awareness of my relationship with you, like my awareness of how I'm being in relationship to you, then I become more conscious of, again, what am I trying to do? How am I trying to be? What am I trying to get? Those are questions that are part of every relationship that is kind of interesting in a sense that when we think of a spiritual practice or spirituality and relationship, it's like, and I mentioned this last week, is we're cultivating the capacity to be love and to be authentic and to be um, who we truly are, regardless of anything. But we're trained in to we're trained by our society or by our parents or by our culture or by our religion to play particular roles, whether that's the role of the mother, the role of the husband or the spouse or the partner, the role of the child. We're trained to play a role, and it's very hard to sometimes to figure out who are we within that role. So that's what we're going to be talking about is how to create and cultivate awareness of who we are inside this role and does it really work for us. So I welcome you to this conversation. Hopefully, I'll be able to hear what you have to say about this. Looking forward to some questions or comments that you might have or thoughts that I'd love to hear. And if you haven't already, I would love it for you um, to like this. Give me a thumbs up if this sounds like it's valuable to you, and subscribe if you haven't already. That would be really helpful. So, um, one of the things I want to share is that my job as a transformational coach, one of the parts of my job is to be a thinking partner. So, 99% of the people who hire me to be their coach, they want something. And um, and my job as a thinking partner is to help them get what they want. My job actually is to empower them to empower themselves to get what they want. So I want to be really clear about that. I've got my magic wand, as we've talked about, but I only use it to empower people to empower themselves to create what they really want. When I'm looking at my notes over here, so just because I want to be clear about what I'm wanting to say here, my job is to be a thinking partner, and that means I'm witnessing and I'm listening for what people are saying, and what they know to be true, what they know, what they want, what they know, what's true for them, as opposed to here's what I'm doing and I don't like it, or here's what's happening and I don't like it. Here's what I've been trained to do, but I don't like it. And it's like listening for who this person is in relation to their their partnership, their partnership with their partner, or their partnership with their child, or their employment. These are all partnerships, right? And at the same time, we're having a partnership with ourselves. And this is what this whole spiritual dilemmas playlist is about: is that we are the intention of cultivating spirituality is the intention to know ourselves fully, and that includes knowing ourselves as an aspect of the divine, the universal source of all that is. And so we're learning to have a relationship with ourselves in relation to divine and spirituality. That's a relationship that we're having. And we're also having a relationship with our partners and our children and our work and our health and our bodies, all of these things. So my job as a transformational coach is to be a thinking partner and listen for the authenticity of what's really true for my clients, and what's not working for them. What are the belief systems that they're living in that keep them from expressing perhaps their authentic self, or being their authentic self in relationship. So for me, I'm pretty transparent if you haven't figured that out already. So I tell a lot of stories about myself because I'm I'm the experimenter. I'm the experiment, and I'm the experimenter with this life experience. And so I can share that with you in terms of my own experience, and then you get to decide how it is for you. And that's the most important part of these conversations for me, is that I get to share what I think, or what my beliefs are, or my experience with myself and other people, with clients. And you can say, yeah, that works for me, or no, that doesn't work for me. And when you can say that, when you can declare or distinguish, yeah, that works for me and that doesn't, now you're becoming more clear in what works for you, that authenticity. And it's one of the things I wanted to offer and do offer through this series of videos, is that we get to be more authentic about what's true, and in a sense, an equal partnership of uh, clear communications. Here's what's true for me and what's true for you. And not that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right, or you're right and I'm nobody's right and nobody's wrong. We're just having a relationship and a clearer communication based on our authentic experience, authentic truth, and our authentic knowing as it is in this moment. My authentic experience continues to shift and change constantly. And there's an element of me, an aspect of me, that continues to be the same, the essence of me. And the intention of this particular conversation is to support and empower you, to support and empower yourself, to know what that essential nature is. What's your essential uh, essence of being? And how do you be that no matter what relationship you're in? Again, I have a relationship with skin cancer, and I have a relationship with my body, I have a relationship with food, I have a relationship with people, all of that. And what's the common denominator? In a sense, how am I always me in this? And how do I choose? What do I want to choose to be in? How do I want to choose to be in a relationship? So, for instance, 95%, I would say, of my relationships up till the time I was 65 was based on fear, whether it was my body or cancer, or people and my children, whatever it is. My business focused on it's fear based, and my relationship with my two husbands were based on fear. I was and power. In a sense, I've talked about my nature to try to manipulate them so that they would do what I wanted, but then I could be with what I wanted to be with, as opposed to face the fears of confrontation and conflict, or separation and divorce, which happened anyway. So my fear of separation, my fear of abandonment and betrayal, my fear of losing the security and stability, the loss, all of those fears ran a lot of what I was in relationship to with my partners, but also with my children. It's like I want them to think I'm a great mom. And so I would work very hard at being what I thought they needed me to be, as opposed to being me. And this is what I want for you, is that ability to go, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm working really hard to have that person want me around versus I want to work really hard at being me and loving me and respecting me and honoring me. And if they don't want me around, okay, I'll go away. I'll find someone who enjoys my company and it, enjoys a partnership the way that I do, or whatever that is. So we have this capacity to either stay in a fear-based perspective, fear-based relationships, or to come out of the closet, as it were, and become more of who we truly are. Exposing ourselves, exploring who we are, experimenting with who we are in relationship to life. So I explore in relation to cancer, not from the medical model, the Western medical model, but from alternative methods to heal cancer for me, because I um, I operate that way, and so I am in relationship with myself and my life from an more alternative perspective. I grew up with a father that was a medical doctor, and that was great and learned a lot. But I've learned other things that says, hey, there's greater possibilities beyond the Western medical model, and that has grown my capacity to live outside fear. So my relationships with even my body and are getting old, right? Aging. We all have a relationship with aging. And 90% of it, I'm using these big numbers because most people have a fear about aging. We don't know what's going to happen to us. We don't know who we're going to become. And we don't know the degree to which we will be in decline and decrepitude. We don't know those things. And so we're not only afraid of the aging process, but we're afraid of the unknown. And so we have a relationship with all of this. And we either have a relationship based on fear or a relationship on something other than fear. So again, part of cultivating awareness of who you are in relationship is to say, who I am includes being fearful a lot, or who I am includes more love and um, desire for expression than fear. And so this is an opportunity to explore who you are in this conversation. So David or Marge or the other person that's here, if you have something to offer or say or have a question, I would love to hear it right now. I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay, so Marge says, my relationship with food is one that I want to look at. Okay, so if that's true, where do you want to start with that, Marge? Do you want to start with, here's what I'm afraid of, here's what I'm not afraid of, here's what I want? What is your thoughts about this? Um, One of the fascinating elements of what I'll call transformational coaching is understanding that how we be with one thing is how we be in all things. In a sense, there's a common denominator of how we be in relationship. Um, and sometimes, I mean, one of the things I'm appreciating about still being on the planet at 69 years old is that I continue to discover things about myself and about life I know before. I continue to have experiences beyond the normal that I never expected. And I don't, it's like pretty cool. So the longer I stay in on the planet, I get to explore where have I been afraid or where am I showing up differently? Where am I? What's this about? And I keep learning, and I keep there's new revelations, there's new insights, there's new ways of being in the world that never occurred to me before. Never occurred to me. Again, when I was a kid, and all I could think about was I want to get married and have kids because I want to be like my mom. I want to have a life like my mom, and I tried to structure myself so that that would be the case, and that would be the case till I died. But when I was 26, I divorced and I separated not only from my husband, but from my children. And so this whole calamity of this structure that I had wanted so desperately because it meant uh, safety and security and no fear, that all disappeared and something else showed up. So this continues to be the case. I forget where I'm going with that, but it'll come back. Marge says, I tend to eat to squash unwanted feelings. Sugars and fats are very efficient at that. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And whether it's food is one element of life, an aspect of life that we have relationship with, that for you, Marge, you can count on to squash unwanted feelings. So that's a good thing to know. One of the things that's really important for me in my work as a coach, or even in these conversations, is there's no wrong, there's no bad, there's no um, this is a terrible thing that you're doing. There's none of that because each of us has our own sense of truth and our own human experience and our own not only human experience here in this pattern, in this life, in this form, but multidimensional and parallel lives and ancestral influences. We have so much that's influencing us. There can't be any right, wrong, good, or bad because we're just this unfolding process of being that's ongoing. So, food is just one element of what we can use to squash emotions. I used relationships. I used food, and I've used relationship. If I'm in a relationship, I don't have to deal with my issues of abandonment, and I don't have to deal with my issues of isolation and loneliness. I don't have to deal with my idea is if I'm in relationship and it squashes all that other stuff, I don't have to deal with it. And so relationships are that, or pornography is that, or alcohol is that, or work is that. So all of these things that we can use squash our emotions and our feelings and our truths and our interpretations. Which then, again, the question that we're holding is, or the intention is, we want to cultivate awareness of who we are in relationship. And it's like, okay, I want to be in relationship with my partner, and at the same time, I'm having a relationship with food. I'm having a relationship with my work. I'm having a relationship with children. I'm having a relationship with my animals. And it's like, how much of that is perhaps squashing my ability to have a better relationship or a higher level of conversation or higher level of relationship with my partner. It's just interesting. One of those elements of like, how am I using all of these? Are these distractions or are these actually elements of life that's fulfilling? But when we're using it to squash our emotions, it's probably we're using it to squash something as opposed to we're using it as fulfillment. Can be both. It can be both, but we have to, in a sense, discern and distinguish. Okay, I'm using it to squash, but it also gives me fulfillment. I know that, Marge, for you, that um, cooking and baking is very fulfilling. It's like a creative expression for you, and the eating part is what you're saying is where you get squashed, where you squash your emotions and feelings. And Marge says, and there's a fear if I give up a favorite food, I'll never get it again. It's an all or nothing attitude that I need to change. Great. And what would you have to be with if it was that you had to give it up? totally 100%. What would you have to be with? And this is a question that I would ask anyone who's having to give up something because it's not working in terms of their well-being and their whole being. It's not working in relation to their fullness of relationship, perhaps with their partner or life. And if we're hiding out, then in these places, then and we might have to give it up. What does that mean? So, for instance, sex addicts. That's a big deal because it's like, well, you'd have to give up. There's a sense of I'd have to give up sex, so I can't have that intimacy with my partner. If I give up food, specific foods, there's a sense of loss, and it's like, what would you have to be with if that were the case? For many people, smoking cigarettes or drug addictions or any kind of substance abuse, there's a best friend kind of element to it that I'm this my alcohol is like my best friend. I can count on it. For you, Marge, you can count on the food um, being your bestie and squashing and avoid getting you away from those emotions that you don't want to feel. So when we're in relationship, we want to grow. It's like, okay, I want to cultivate a closer relationship with my partner, but when I get a little bit uncomfortable, I don't turn to my partner for support. I turn to food, or if I, so those kinds of things. I keep running my sentences together, um, but you know what I'm saying, I think. So the more that we can cultivate awareness of how we be in relationships, we can begin to make choices consciously. The thing that most people want is they want things to change, but they're not really interested in the self exploration that's required to make those changes. And quite often, self exploration, we have a lot of negative thinking about that, negative judgments about that. What if I find out that I'm a terrible, horrible person? And that's in a sense a scary thing, but it's not. If you know that you're doing things that are selfish or unkind or mean, you already know that. It wouldn't come as any surprise to actually acknowledge, yeah, I do some things that are really mean, and I don't want to do that anymore because it's not who I want to be in relationship. David says, I'm 69 and by myself for many years, not pursuing a relationship, but more towards seeking spiritual awareness, too complex to adapt into another family. Yeah, I think that's how I feel too, David. Um, and this is another choice, isn't it? That there's a level of, I have that sense for me, that sense of wouldn't it be nice to have the romanticness or the companionship or those elements that I actually have with a lot of people, not necessarily a romantic relationship with a person, but I have a romantic relationship with life. My life is romantic, and that's awesome. And But I agree with you that there's a place where you get to know that you're seeking spiritual awareness, and how are you doing that in your everyday life? In a sense, a lot of times people will um, become more reclusive. I'm reclusive, but I'm still needing to be in relationship with people by choice, uh, and I have to continue to uh, grow myself and expand myself in order to do that. I had a conversation. My daughter Alyssa has a consulting marketing company. It's called Marketing, Fezzik Marketing Company. And we were talking today, and it was like I realized that there's a potential for my business at this age, is 69 years old, where most people are beginning to think about retiring. There's a point where or the potential for my job, my work to explode. and that more people would want to train with me as a transformational coach. And I was like, oh my God, I don't, I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. And so I called her and we had this wonderful conversation exploring who I have been being in relation to my work, in relation to my work. And it's been a theme throughout the day then that is like, oh, how I've been being in with my work has been the same way that I have been being in many of my relationships to my wholeness or to my physicalness or my relationships with people. It's like you could start to see things based on that what I was saying earlier of how I do one thing is how I do many things. And as I mentioned to you guys a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, I am going on a horseback trip for a week. And because of that, I started taking horsemanship lessons and in riding, those kinds of things. And then just on Monday, I started doing an exercise, a 12-week exercise program that's very difficult. And it's looking at and it's like, I don't want to do this, but I'm committed to something greater than just doing the exercise. I can't be committed to having a beautiful body anymore because it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm getting old and everything is sagging, and that's all what it does. And um, I'm strengthening myself so that when I go on this trip, I'm going to be prepared. I'll be strong and I'll be flexible, and it's going to be great. And so we have to look at how we be in our life that may be consistent over areas. So um, and that willingness to make those changes. I don't know, like you, David. I don't know that I want to work hard to be in another partnership. I don't know that I want to work that hard, um, and that's a good thing for me to know. If something shows up that's beyond the beyond and makes perfect sense, then that's I'll watch and I'll observe and I'll participate in that and see what happens. But it's not something that I want to uh, focus on because I don't want to work that hard. And being with other people's stuff, like you said, family, other people's the family elements of life, it's too complex to adapt to, and I totally agree. I think about that all the time. It's like, "Oh, man, I might meet somebody that's very wonderful, but then he's got a family." And as a family therapist, but also as all the experience I've had with other people's families, you're right, it's just too much, too much. So, anyway, I have this conversation with myself all the time too. Marge says, that turning to food is so automatic. Most often, I'm not even aware of the uncomfortable feeling unless I catch myself in the act and ask myself, what's going on here? Excellent. Um, that's brilliant. That's cultivating awareness of you in relationship with your food, with yourself, with your emotions, with perhaps the person that you're engaging with, or the memory or the thoughts. You're beginning to cultivate awareness of all these elements of you that's showing up in that moment and going, what's going on here? And it's a great moment. So thank you for sharing that. It's and you know, for me, so life is a process, right? And our physical reality is a process. We get small and we grow. We not get small. We start out small. We grow into these adults, and then we start to shrink in a sense and transform into these elderly, aging people if we're lucky, and then we're off the planet. It's just one long process, and part of that is the dynamics and the fluidity of all of that comes in and all that changes and all the processes that are occurring in our life on the physical, on the emotional, on the energetic, on the spiritual, all of that. But I think I was 19 and I was dealing with skin cancer way back then, like I said. And I went to the library and I looked at what cancer is. And what I read was that cancer is it's constant in our system. It's cells that have gone rogue, and that happens in our body all the time. It's all the time, and it's only and our body is able to handle it until it can't. When we are stressed and when we're overwhelmed or when we're not paying attention to ourselves, when we're not in self care or whole being and well being, then our bodies can't do all the work. It needs our support. So that's when we get eruptions, or that's when we get tumors, and that's where we get lesions. Is it's our bodies that are giving us information. So I say that because I was so terrified of skin cancer. I was terrified I was panicking. I was in, constantly in a state of angst and anxiousness. But when I was able to look at it from a different perspective, I was able to shift my relationship to skin cancer or to cancer and say, okay, I need to help this out so that my body can do the work it needs to do, that my body can heal itself with my support. So we're constantly in this relationship with all, and say that in relation to all of these dynamics and complexities of reality that we don't take into consideration on any level. Some clients of mine have been going to marriage therapy or partnership therapy, and nothing has changed in the 9 months that they've been going through this therapy because some of the dynamics have not been addressed by the therapist, which is it just happens. It's just what happens. But it's like, what isn't being addressed here that would maybe make differences in terms of the dynamics of each individual? um, David says, when you open the fridge door, you have already automatically visualized the rewards. Woohoo! That's right. Thus, it is an automatic process of habit. Perhaps diversion or promise to oneself to delay may help. Yeah, those are great thoughts. And yes, when you open up the fridge, it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to have that feeling go away, or that emotion go away, and have the rewards of the flavors that will help soothe and, in a sense, feel good. Marge says, "Yeah, you've got that, David." Um, and so there has to be a greater commitment, and this is kind of what I was talking about with going horseback riding. I'm committed to having a great time. That means I'm committed to doing some training with a horse person. I'm committed to strengthening my body. I'm committed to, and it's like, oh crap. But if I don't have this higher commitment, then it doesn't matter if I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to eat that today, because if I don't have a commitment that's greater than self self soothing, then it's not going to work. Hello, Mateus. Depressed friend has been ignoring me for 4 months. Should I end this relationship? That's a great question. Um, the question I would have for you, Mateus, is what's your sense of what you want? In a sense, you're saying, should I end this relationship? But the question is, what is it that you want? What is it you want, either from this relationship or by leaving this relationship? Either way, what is it that you want? So this is a great question that helps us look at this dynamic. A lot of times people say, should I leave a relationship? Should I do this? Should I do that? And my first question for them, and for you this time, Mateus, is, what is it that you want? So when you know what you want, that's a first step in then looking at, yeah, I should leave this relationship. Or no, I want to pursue this, but maybe do it differently. So the first question, Mateus, is, what is it that you want? So I'm going to stay tuned for what you have to say about that. I hope you answer. And for those that are here, if you like this video so far and you find value, I would love it for you to give me a thumbs up. It lets me know that there is value for you, and that what I'm saying is making a difference for you. So please give me a thumbs up if that is working for you. And if you haven't already subscribed, That would be great too for you to subscribe, and then I know too that I can look forward to more conversations with you. Um, I can looking at Mateus's question, should I end the relationship? Again, it's like when I ask the question as a thinking partner, Mateus, as I ask the question, what is it you want? That lets me know that you're looking at this from a different a perspective of here's what I want. I want respect. I want connection and engagement. I want a mutual relationship with people. And this particular person, I'm just making this up because I don't know, this particular person doesn't have the capacity to meet you where you want to be and what you want to do. Mateus, thank you. You said, I miss her before depression, but I'm not sure if she's doing that because she just doesn't like or because of her depression. I would like to connect with her like before. I totally get that. Um, that you miss her because who she was before the depression, you liked that. That was a good thing. And you're not sure about is she ignoring you because of the depression or of something else. And when a person doesn't communicate, it's very difficult for us to uh, keep holding that space. We can hope, and we can wish and we can want, and at the same time, if your needs are not being met, then it might be a good idea to consider, what is it that, let's see, let me say this, you would like to connect with her like before. She's not available for that in this moment, and so that quality, the what you're looking for is that quality of engagement that's not available right now. So what is it that you need to be with, in a sense, that can shift this for you? In a sense, I guess what I'm trying to think of 1,400 things all at the same time to answer the question, but also to empower you to see this differently. So again, I love what you're saying in terms of I want what I'm hearing, Mateus. I want to connect with her like we used to, and I can't because she's not available. So she's not available. So now what? David says, um, if it's not a marriage, then friends drift closer or they drift further apart naturally. Quality time is important. Therefore, I would pursue my interests politely. David, can you say a little bit more about that in terms of what that means to pursue your interests politely? And, Mateus, what I'm hearing is if she's ignoring you, she's not communicating with you, then you have the choice to say, here's what I need to be with. I need to let go of this as a place where I can have that connection, and I have to explore other possibilities. Um, there's, when people say, should I leave, should I end this relationship? It sounds like it's it's in the form that it was before her depression. That part is ended. In a sense, you don't have the same relationship that you had before. So much of our relationships, and I think this is kind of what David was talking about, is there's a life cycle to relationships. There's life cycle relationships to our business, to our health, to our children, to our partners. There's a life cycle. There's this honeymoon phase, there's this engagement, there's this connection. There's then quite often a disconnect because we get to a level of intimacy quite often that is too scary. And so people do things and people hide out or they avoid and ignore and distract because it's too scary. And if that continues, then one of the partners, the partner that is left, is like you, Mateus, is like, well, what do I do about this? And this is part of as if your partner isn't able to or willing to come back, if she's not willing to can stay connected with you through this depression, then that process is Okay, I have to acknowledge the completion of this relationship where it is. I have to let go of my want to have it the way it used to be, because it's not that now. And that means being connected to the grief and the sadness of the loss and missing her. And I totally get that. So, Mateus, let me know what that how that res- how that sits with you from what I just said. David says, yes, letting go is allowing the other their freedom. We cannot force or control the other. Control of another is not healthy in relationship. Yeah, letting go. It's the old let it go and see what happens. When we pull back and let go of that energy of want and desire from another person, it gives them the freedom to choose based on what they need. I can only speak, Mateus, from my sense of I don't know what her depression is caused by, and I don't know any of those dynamics, but I do know that you miss her. And so to have to be with that is a big deal. And to let her go and let her find her own way and maybe find her own way back to you, we don't know. But the cycle is either the relationship grows itself or it dies. There's a saying, we are either growing it, killing it, or letting it die. It's a really big part of this conversation is some of our relationships we have to deal with. All of our relationships actually is a big fat B with. All of our relationships, there are those moments, whether it's food or our partners, where there's a big fat B with we have to face. We don't want to be with. I get that you don't want to let go of this relationship, but it might be the best thing for you. And as David's pointing out, this might be the best thing for her as well. Mateus says, although she apologizes to me when she gets mad at me over trivial things, I've been staying with the hope that would be temporary. So um, at this point, this is a hard part about relationships is if your partner isn't willing to grow with you or meet you or get the help and support to be able to maintain the level of relationship that you're both wanting, then at some point one of you will continue to grow and the other one won't. And though she apologizes, um, that when she gets mad, uh, she's not shifting her. What I'm understanding from what you're saying is she's not shifting her behavior. She's not shifting the way she's being. She's not shifting anything in order, like shifting as in truly making a difference, so that she can meet you where you want in this relationship. And that's a challenging place for people to go, okay, she's not meeting me and she's not doing anything to meet me. And she's not practicing and training or living in the practice or exercising so that she can do that, whether that's through a therapist on her own or whatever it is. So this is a big dilemma for a lot of relationships is uh, because we're growing, as I say, part of the life cycle of a relationship is we love each other and this is wonderful. And then there's a point where it's like, wait, this isn't so wonderful anymore. What do we want to do about that? And quite often people will suffer, settle, and survive. And in suffering, settling, and surviving, it's like, well, that's not fun. And at some point we get tired of it and we start to go away. And if the other person goes, wait, I appreciate and value enough that I'm willing to do the work. It's okay, great. And so you can be a choice in that, Mateus, in terms of how you want to meet her in that process. Quite often, um, I worked in recovery and addictions for a long time. I still use an addiction model for everything in a sense that when people have a depression or what I call is utilizing those elements of depression. They kind of go in and they shrink, and they're in this self-deprecating world. It's like an addiction. We get addicted to the chemical, hormonal situation of that, or anger, or anxiety, or fear, or worry. Those are all. ways that we can be addicted to those patterns of being. And if we're not willing to shift those, then it's very difficult to be in relationship with them. So whether it's alcohol or substances, like we're talking about food for March, or depression or abuse, whatever that is, if people aren't willing to make the change, then the partners have to go, wait, what about, how do I feel about this? Who am I in this relationship? Who am I being here now? And how do I want to be in relationships? And if this is not how you want to be, then I would encourage you um, to empower yourself to take the steps to leave and see what happens for yourself. David says emotional manipulation is a red flag. Love is not a contract nor a transaction. Love of a friend is caring about them, but not as an emotional slave or constant leaning post. Yeah. And again, when we're looking at who we are being in relationship, I was totally codependent. I was the leaning post, and I was also the whipping boy. And I was also, the one that did that out of manipulation in a sense. There was so much contractual stuff, as David's saying, so much emotional manipulation going on. We rarely had a true relationship. We rarely had, especially with the first relationship when I was 20 and he was 22, 21, 22. We had no way of connecting because it was all based on roles and who we think we were supposed to be and how we're supposed to be. And it was all that contractual stuff, as David's saying. But there was very rarely, any friendship, any connection in a way that was truly love based. And these are this is where we get to be more conscious about, okay, how do I want to be in relationship in the world? How do I want to be in relationship with myself in relation to this person, Mateus? Like, how do I want to be? Do I want to um, uh, and David's using some very strong language in terms of this emotional and manipulation, or this thing of we're not emotional slaves or the constant leaning post, but how do we want to be? And how are you being? This is a big question. How are you being in such a way that it has brought about this relationship with a person that is depressed? It's not saying that it's your fault. I'm just saying, how is it that because many times we attract people that show us our patterns of being that we got to learn about or that we got to see. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. My daughter Alyssa, as I mentioned earlier, we're working things out. I was a non-custodial parent. I was not part of her life other than phone calls or whatever and long distance conversations and all. I was not part of her life for a very long time, and in the way that you think a mother would be. And so she's 45 and we're working it out, but I have to see who I am as a real person. Forever I've been trying to be the mother to make up for what I didn't do or how I wasn't there. So all of that trying to make up for is manipulation. And I'm watching myself go, look at that. I don't want to be that because, first of all, it doesn't work. It doesn't create connection for us. It doesn't create anything that is fulfilling in our connection. And so the more I let go of that manipulation and that trying to be, the more I be who I am. And the relationship continues to grow, which is wonderful. But I have to keep giving up those parts that I thought was what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to try to be a parent, right? You're supposed to try to be the best mom. You're supposed to try to be the best partner for somebody who's depressed. You're supposed to try, right? It's part of the message that we're given. But it's like that trying at some point isn't who you are. The trying is because I'm supposed to be, as opposed to, no, my authentic self says, I've had enough and I need to separate myself. I need to individuate. I need to disconnect from this and discover who I am as I move away from this. So Mateus, it's like, who are you now in this relationship? And as you, let's say you choose to leave the relationship. So it's not like, okay, I'm leaving. It's, oh, I'm in the process of leaving. And in the process of leaving, you experience yourself in the process. So in a sense, you're with her and you say, okay, you have that conversation. It's like, oh my God, I have to have this authentic, clear conversation with this woman, this person that I'm leaving. And now I have to be authentically clear with her that I'm leaving. And now I have to be with myself as I'm doing this, and I have to be with my questioning and my self doubt, and I have to be with my certainty, and I have to be with my fears, and I have to be with my grief. All of this is, it's like exhausting to say, doesn't it? It sounds exhausting, but it's truly what each of us human beings are being with in relation to whatever it is we're being with. Okay, I had a thing here, and I knew it was most likely skin cancer. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to look at it. I don't even want to look at it because it's scary. And then I look at it and I go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this medicine on it, and I put the medicine on it, and it's like, oh my God, I don't want to look at it because I don't want to see, I don't want to know, I don't want to have to deal with. And it's those kinds of patterns, right? It's like, I don't want to deal with this. But if I don't deal with it, then I don't complete the process of perhaps what this is about, or what your relationship is about, or what Marge's relationship with food is. It's if we don't be aware of who we are in relationship to whatever it is, we can't grow ourselves to the next level. We can't grow ourselves to a greater degree of freedom to be fulfilled with food, without food, with partners, without partners, but to be fulfilled in ourselves in relation to life. Yeah, good one, Mateus. I'm the only one keeping the relationship alive. That's a good indication. Now, again, it's not. I'm not saying you should leave, but I'm saying if you're the one that's doing all the work, then you might want to ask yourself, how's that working for you? I hate that question, so I apologize. But if is it enough for you to be the one to keep the relationship alive? If it's not, then that process begins. Okay, I'm in a, and even in the conversation here, Mateus, to say, should I leave? Thank you for asking that and saying, okay, I'm thinking about leaving. I'm getting clearer about leaving. I'm getting clearer about there's nobody meeting me the way that I want to be met in a relationship. So I'm going to begin the process of individuating. I'm going to begin the process of honoring myself and respecting my desires to be met. And so I'm going to begin to leave. I'm going to begin this process. And that's the beauty of this human unfolding, if you will, is because we can't know ourselves unless we go through these very challenging, difficult practices, whether it's with another human being, whether it's with cancer, whether it's with our homes, whatever that is. We can't go. We That's where those are our learning opportunities. We get to meet ourselves and honor every single step that we're taking. And so many of us just want, okay, I'm leaving, and now it's done, and I don't have to deal with that anymore. But we're constantly unfolding and undoing and letting go of those patterns. My second partner, we were together for about 12 years, and we separated in 2012, I think. And it took me a very, very, very long time to work through all the stuff I was holding on to. I didn't even know I didn't even know who I was and how I was being until I gave myself the room and the space to explore all of that so that I could get to know who I am and then begin to be more at choice about, do I, like David, like we're saying, do I really want to engage in another kind of partnership that way? Or can I be fulfilled in life, the way that I am? So those are choices that we get to make over and over again. So thank you for saying I'm the only one keeping the relationship alive, Mateus, because that's a really good indicator that you might want to find and explore what that would be like for you to have a mutual relationship with somebody who wants to keep the relationship alive too. That'll be, I would suspect that might be a scary, scary adventure for you when you get to that point. But yeah, so thank you for that. David says, Bible, you unequally coupled. Therefore, get to know a person over time. Know the person as a whole before moving in closer. Personal boundaries are graduated and progressive and by permission. That's great. Personal boundaries are graduated and progressive and by permission. And that's true for being in partnership with other people. And we are constantly, this particular live is about doing that for ourselves, with ourselves, to go, okay, I mean, I keep saying I'm 69 because it's like, I'm learning so much about how to meet myself and where those boundaries have been too scary to cross, where those places, it's like with Marge with food, it's like, it's too scary to give that up. I need to keep squashing those emotions because it's too scary to be with that, until there's a point where you go, okay, it's scary and I want a different relationship with myself so I can have a different relationship with the world. Because of the exploration I've been doing with myself, I have a different relationship with my daughter than I would have if I didn't do the work that I did. And one of the things she tells me a lot is she's so grateful that I've been doing the work that I've been doing. She never expected it. She never anticipated. And it makes a difference in us being connected. So what I'm saying is that when we become more aware, when we cultivate awareness of how we're being in relationship, we're cultivating awareness about how we be in relationship with ourselves. And again, looking at those personal boundaries that we've not allowed ourselves to cross, and to gradually and progressively and by permission connect to deeper levels of ourselves. Not deeper levels of ourselves so much as being able to say, I know myself better. I know myself more fully. I accept myself. I forgive myself for all that I've been, all the ways that I have been, because I didn't know any different. I was trained, I worked it, I did it the way I was taught. And it's like, wait a second, that's not working for me personally. And so a lot of things I've shifted and I grow myself and have a very, I mean, I can say I have a unique perspective, but it's different than the mainstream will say. And so I'm me, right? I'm me, but I'm happier with me than I've ever been before. I'm healthier. I laugh a lot more, much more spontaneous. I have less fear about having these conversations with you. I get all prepared, and this is what I'm going to say. And then it's like, my job is just to be authentic and be present with you and see what shows up. So, and I've learned that by giving myself permission and progressively and graduatingly, like David's saying, coming to know myself to this degree. And it's pretty amazing. And it's what I want for everybody. It's what I want for you. That's why I'm doing these, is because I want this for you, to know you and to honor you and respect you, and to give yourself the fullness of what life has to offer you and the fullness of what you have to offer yourself. And you can't do that unless you take those steps. So thank you, Mateus. Thank you guys for all the questions and the comments that you've given. I hope it's been valuable. If it's been valuable, give me a thumbs up. That really helps me know that what I'm saying and that these lives are valuable to you. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love you to do that too. So David says, we teach others how they treat us by firm and open expression of our personal boundaries, what we accept and what we need not accept. Even in close relationships, there are two individuals. That's right. And that's a hard thing. It's a different way for us to be in relationships, is that you're individual, whole and complete, and I'm an individual, whole and complete, and we're having this relationship. What we've been taught is enmeshment and falling in love, and isn't this wonderful, and we'll live happily ever after. But that enmeshment, or the belief in enmeshment, the oneness of us, gets us into trouble. And until we begin to individuate again and say, this is who I am in this relationship, and this is what I need in this relationship, and this is what I desire for me and for you, then we can begin to have a more full, whole relationship based on two individuals. So thank you again, you guys. Hey, thanks for the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week, I hope. All right. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.